My name's Ann Baker. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist and lifestyle educator. And I want to thank Michigan Holistic Nurses for having me here tonight, for inviting me. I was very excited about the opportunity to come and speak with you all. And I have to tell you something, nurses are some of my favorite people, and it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that my sister's a nurse. They really are. On unfortunate occasions that I have had to be attended by a nurse, I have to say that they were fantastic. So much more accessible and so much more personable than any doctor that I had in the hospital. And when you're, undergoing some sort of a procedure, it's very reassuring to know we have that person there. So you people deserve so much gratitude. You're really unsung heroes, and I know from my friends who are nurses, including my sister, how overwhelming your jobs can be, how much, you could use about 25 more people working with you a lot of times, so you don't even get to, take a bathroom break or eat or anything else. So I've also worked with nurses as clients, so I have great depth of respect and empathy for what you do. So thank you very much. I'm just going to put up my credentials really quickly. That's not why we're here. We're here to get into the information tonight. I'm just going to tell you that I did just write a book. It's a gluten-free cookbook. It's called Season It Well, The Outrageous and Delicious Gluten-Free Recipe Collection. I do have it here if you'd like to look at it. Consider purchasing it afterwards. My sister's handling that for me. My certification is from Nutrition Therapy Institute of Denver, Colorado. And I also worked on a Master of Nutrition from there. I didn't complete it, but I did most of the coursework. I frankly started launching my business and just found that I got too busy, to be honest with you. I've taken a number of other continuing educations. You can see them here, including some herbal studies as well, functional medicine studies. If you're that interested in getting into it, go to my LinkedIn profile. You can read all about me. My memberships and affiliations, I am a founding board member of the Michigan Nutrition Association. I am also affiliated with the American Nutrition Association and the National Association of Nutrition Professionals, and I was on their 2013 event conference planning committee. Also involved in Alliance for National Health, Healthy Traditions Network, the Detroit chapter here. I'm on the leadership team. I'm on the medical advisory board as a nutrition contributor for WQ.org, and I'm also a Holistic Chamber of Commerce member for Open and Macomb. So we're going to talk tonight about some of the triggers, and I think it's very important because we're talking about working with people holistically, and a big focus of holistic working is prevention. And I think part of prevention, as well as once a person actually does come up with a diagnosis, is learning what the triggers are and uncovering them. We're going to look at the triggers. Epigenetics, we're going to look at environmental toxins, heavy metals, genetically modified foods. We're going to touch on liver health in section 2. We're going to talk about the role of gut health, immunity in autoimmune disorders, food intolerances, protein digestion, secondary immune responses, and pathogenic bacteria. And then we are in section 3 going to talk about food as medicine for autoimmune disorders. So, who gets autoimmune disease? I think it's important to understand that more women than men get autoimmune diseases. It's one of the top 10 causes of death among women of all age groups up to 65, and it runs in families such as lupus and multiple sclerosis. And the number of people that they estimate suffer from these diseases is about 20% of the American population. As many as 50 million people they know are diagnosed, but keep in mind that diagnosis many times takes years. So the figures are probably much higher than that. There are more than 80 illnesses caused by autoimmune. So let's look at female and male ratios, because again, I think this is very important. And I'm going to get into some of the new science as to why women are more prone to this. You can see the ratios of female to males that have autoimmune and all these conditions. And any body parts pretty much that you see here can be affected. Okay. So some of the more familiar autoimmune conditions you can see here, and some of them are probably not a surprise to you. A few of them may be, like chronic fatigue. I think a lot of people don't realize that that actually is an autoimmune issue, and it wasn't recognized as such for quite some time. So for autoimmune disease to manifest, there must be three factors present: an environmental trigger, like an antigen, a genetic susceptibility, such as in Crohn's disease, intestinal permeability, which is leaky gut syndrome, and by far the easiest of the three of these factors to alter clinically is intestinal permeability. And this is from the Townsend letter. So let's get into the epigenetics. They've recently discovered that there's a differential expression of microRNAs in women and men, and that this does impact disease outcome and pathogenesis. In a number of autoimmune diseases, women do have higher incidences because of this. MicroRNAs are involved in regulation of virtually all cell processes, including metabolism, development, morphogenesis, programmed cell death, and angiogenesis. Their dysregulated expression also is associated with human pathologies. So microRNAs can have a broad effect on downstream signaling pathways. Multiple factors, hormonal or genetic, can either protect males or increase vulnerability in females. The X chromosomes enriched in microRNAs, and there is a possibility that microRNAs may actually escape this X-linked inactivation. So what this means is that we could have suppression of some microRNA-regulated targeted genes involved in immunosuppression pathways, and this might lead to an increase or heightened autoimmune response in females and make them more predisposed to getting autoimmune diseases. This is rather new. This came out this fall. And according to the NIH Progress on Autoimmune Research 2005 report, genetics reasons for developing autoimmune diseases only account for 1/3 of all cases. Very, very interesting, isn't it? Because for a long time, everybody, I think, just assumed that it was much more than that, much higher than that. So Virginia T. Ladd, who's the president, executive director of the AARDA, says that with the rapid increase in autoimmune diseases, it clearly suggests that environmental factors are at play due to the significant increase in these diseases. Genes do not change in such a short period of time. So that's pretty interesting, isn't it? So according to Dr. Mark Hyman, whom I think hopefully many of you know, he says hidden allergies, infections, environmental toxins, and inflammatory diet and stress are the real causes of these inflammatory conditions. So let's look a little at environmental toxins. These are some pretty astonishing figures. Since 1900, over 80,000 chemicals have been introduced, but only 550 of these have ever been tested for safety. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency reports that 2.5 billion pounds of toxic chemicals are released annually by large industrial facilities, and 6 million pounds of mercury are released into the air every year. So we're really being bombarded with this. Just simple things like plastics, hard to avoid. EPA and now BPS, which is still, was thought to be okay. Well, they're finding that both of them are problematic, and we still have disruption of memory-initiated E2-induced cell signaling. And this can lead to altered cell proliferation, cell death, and prolactin release. So data suggests that this can actually cause long-term advanced reproductive and carcinogenic effects, especially during periods of differentiation, i.e. children being in the womb, and developing. So in the 2012 Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry report, researchers in the Indian River and Education Center in University of Florida did some testing on food in grocery stores, and they just randomly went in and checked. They used chromatography with tandem mass spectrometry, and they actually found fruits and vegetables had a tremendous amount of BPA and estradiol in them. So this is kind of scary, that this stuff is getting into our produce. and you wouldn't normally associate it with that. They're not exactly sure why. They think some of it might have been from cross-contamination from irrigation, but they really don't know. The CDC reports that commonly used household and personal care products, like anything you would use every day, have things like sodium lauryl sulfate and cotton oil, and these are neurotoxins. And emerging research points to these substances having immunosuppressive and tumor-promoting activity. Toxic chemicals in fragrance laundry reports and health effects actually lists 12 substances. I can't believe it's only 12. So the National Institute of Health Environment and Protection Agency is recognized as hazardous and carcinogenous. Now, none of these chemicals were listed on any product label. They found all 12 of these that are actually, been flagged as hazardous. They're not on any label. And there currently is no law requiring fragrances to be listed because the industry is self-regulated and fragrances are trade secrets. If you want to get your mind blown, another place to go and look, and I'm a big research nut, so when you get the handout, you'll see oodles and oodles of places to research all kinds of stuff. Breast Cancer Action, an environmental working group, fabulous work that they're doing, and Breast Cancer Action puts on some marvelous free webinars, and they do them usually once a quarter. And you will just absolutely be mind-boggled by what you will find out is just out there in the stores that we're buying and we're using on our bodies, and we're ingesting and it's going into our bodies, and it's because this industry is self-regulating. So we have a real big problem here. Now, I'm going to stop and just say, part of our jobs as holistic healthcare people is to be better at connecting the dots. We don't want to work like this in the tunnel. We want to work like this. So we know that women are more susceptible genetically. There's differentiation that happens. We know that women use a lot more of these products, right? We're cleaning the homes. We are putting hair coloring on and makeup and using, the average woman I think uses 12 to 16 body products a day. So you can see why the body burden for women is much greater, okay? So another interesting fact here is that 99%, almost 100% of the U.S. population has some kind of methylparaben in their urine, and this is from ages 6 and older. So the other thing that's troubling about this is this doesn't even account for chronic low-dose exposures or the combination synergistic effects of other things that are happening inside the body.
What about other feedback?
So commonly used preservatives might be contributing to this burden, especially in infants. So Dr. Douglas Kerr, who has actually written this book called The Autoimmune Epidemic, it's a really great book. He's from Johns Hopkins University. He says there is no doubt that autoimmune diseases are on the rise and that our increasing environmental exposure to toxins and chemicals is fueling the risk. The research is sound, the conclusions are unassailable. And interestingly, I do have relationship with some of the functional medicine doctors, and I'm sure you're seeing this too. Those of you, Anne, that works at Downing, and I know you are too, Alice, and anybody else here, that they are seeing a huge amount of people coming in that have autoimmune issues, whether it's Hashimoto's or fibromyalgia or MS, Crohn's. It's exploding. So again, when we know that genetics is only accounting for 1/3, we've got to look at some of these other areas, and we've really got to start talking about this to people and making them aware that they actually have more control over this than they realize. I think that's the good takeaway from all this, I hope. So let's talk about how to do some reduction of these toxins. So the commercially manufactured household cleaning products have numerous toxins. We talked about that. So switching to the non-toxic, eco-friendly green products is a good idea. There's a lot more out there than there ever used to be. Remember these perfumes and dyes. Perfumes, that's the trade secret. They don't have to reveal what's in there. So, your essential oils are a very nice alternative to that because we know that those are pure, those are from plants. We really don't know what they're concocting in these other fragrances. And, not just perfume, but the things that they put into products. So the ones that are over the counter, most of them have endocrine disrupting substances. So everything you put on your body goes in your body. So It's very important to remember that. The Skin Deep database is a wonderful database. This is in the handout too. And it's growing every day. It actually, there's an app for it now too. And one of the things I really like, not only does it give you a scale numerically, if you put a product in or you can use the barcode, and it will tell you, all the ingredients and how they're flagged risk-wise. They explain how they develop the risk assessment, and then they will also give you suggested other less toxic products, which is really a pretty cool thing. So it's, it's real consumer friendly. So think about off-gassing from new furniture. These people generally have very severe chemical sensitivities. So, try and discourage them from putting new carpeting in or buying new furniture as much as you can. If they're going to buy new furniture, let it sit out in the garage and air out for a few days before you bring it in. And really try and avoid your remodeling. Mold is another issue. And there's diffusion of essential oils that work really wonderfully for that. Thieves is really one of the great ones, but anything like rosemary is good, clove is good, ginger is good, lemon is good, lavender is good. Those are all very good. So pay attention to your indoor air quality. Get your furnace cleaned, get your vents cleaned every 5 years. Consider getting a room air filter. I often suggest that to people that have severe respiratory issues. Even if they just get a little one and put it in their bedroom, then when they're sleeping at night, it really helps them, to get a more restful sleep and they're getting some good clean air. Also, salt rocks and houseplants are good. Salt rocks are wonderful. Find natural alternatives to solvents. Go low VOC or no VOC on paints. Try not to paint. And use the plant-derived non-toxic pesticides and herbicides when you're in home and garden. Let's talk about heavy metals for a minute. Dental amalgams give us mercury exposure and increase the risk of multiple sclerosis. These are some PubMed facts I popped up here. And it's because when we're chewing, that's getting released into our bodies and directly into our brain. For multiple sclerosis, this is definitely a big problem. And there's a positive association between positive thyroid autoantibodies and total blood mercury in women. So, and mercury is not just in amalgams. So, remember it's in water. Our tap water has a lot of contaminants in it. So try and use some sort of a filter. What your budget can afford is better than nothing. Don't use aluminum cookware. Don't use aluminum foil for storing or cooking food. You can use parchment paper. I should also say that the Teflon nonstick stuff is very bad. Don't use that. Use cast iron, use anodized stainless steel cookware, and there's a new product that is ceramic coated, which is fine particles of ceramic coated, or it might be called a green pan. Sometimes they're white, sometimes they're gray. Those are supposed to be better. There's no real research on that I can stand up here and definitely assure you, but they're better than Teflon. Teflon's really bad. If you have Teflon, just put the parchment paper down. Don't let it touch it. I mean, if you're forced to use that, that's an alternative. Avoid aluminum canned products, especially the acidic things. You can always use fresh if you can do it, or get the glass containers or the plastic lined cans are somewhat better. And consider getting your amalgams removed by a trained holistic dentist. So next I'm going to talk about GMOs, genetically modified organisms. Does everybody know what those are? And I hate GMOs. And you're going to see how much I hate them, because I'm going to blow your mind. I don't want you to buy any more GMOs. I want you to tell everybody, don't buy them. They are really creepy. The way they do this is they isolate a gene with a desired trait, and then they change it so it works in plants. And then they prepare the plant cells or tissue, and then they transform the plant cells using a gene gun. They blast it in there. Or sometimes they use a bacterium method. So they put in a bacterium and then they put it in. And then they regrow the cells to plants via culture. They basically clone. Now, you can see I have a little asterisk there that says steps that contain scientific uncertainties and risk potential. And this is for Institute for Responsible Medicine, fabulous site. Also, GreenMed.info has a ton on this, too. That'll be in your handout. The handout is about 10 pages long. So here is a illustration of how that works with corn. So it's really pretty creepy, and I will get into a little bit more of how this works. I'm going to let you look at it for a minute before I can shift the slide. Yeah, it's a real good slide. Okay, gotta keep moving. Inserting a transgene, what happens, and this lies the problem, is it causes mutations or changes in the sequence of the gene code. It does this near the insertion site and elsewhere. Inserting a transgene can delete natural native genes. So it can just like take them away. So we're really messing with stuff here. Native genes can be switched off permanently or even turned on. Even though the biotech industry says that they can only turn on the transgenes, this research here has determined that that's false. It's not correct. They can do either way. And what happens is this causes it to overproduce its protein in high volume, which might be an allergen, toxin, carcinogen, or anti-nutrient. I'm not a chemist, but proteins fold, and they're supposed to fold in certain sequences. And what happens is this completely alters the way the proteins fold, and they are a completely foreign substance that our bodies don't recognize. The process of cloning a cell into a plant can create hundreds or thousands of additional mutations up and down the whole DNA chain. And according to 2 studies, the GMO DNA is 2 to 4% different than the DNA of its parent. And most of the changes are unpredicted mutations. Inserting a single gene can change how much a protein is being produced in hundreds or thousands of genes. And scientists tested the process of inserting a single gene into a human cell and found that up to 5% of the genes change their levels of expression. So this is a human study. Taken together, genetic engineering causes massive collateral damage in the DNA. More problems. What this does is it increases levels of known naturally occurring toxins. It creates the appearance of new, not previously identified toxins. It increases the tendency to gather toxic substances from the environment, such as pesticides and heavy metals. So it gathers those up to make it even more awful. And undesirable alterations in the level of nutrients. So that's the other thing. It impacts the nutrition of our food. I'm going to get into that a little bit more. On the immune system, huge, huge implications. GMOs change the etiology of the gut. This is confirmed by Jeffrey Smith, Seeds of Deception. Great film, great book. You can get it on Institute of Responsible Technology, a real mind blower. Because these are foreign genes, the body doesn't recognize them and it treats them as invaders. This initiates the secondary immune response, and cytokines are released to protect the body from these invaders, right? I mean, we know that's how that works. So that's what's going on. So, now let's think about this. All these people are eating all these products that are GMO because if they're not buying organic, they're getting GMO products. Boy, here's another real biggie, right? So cytokines and immune signaling, I thought this was quite interesting. You can see some of the interleukin forms and what they are responsible for with risk associations. You know, the IL-6 is rheumatoid arthritis, IBD, osteoporosis, MS, and cancer. The IL-13, allergies, rhinitis, and ALS, Lou Gehrig's. The MIP-1B, autoimmune diseases and colitis, and also elevated lung fluid in patients with mustard gas, pulmonary fibrosis. And the IL-12P70, inflammatory bowel disease and multiple sclerosis. So these cytokines are being created that are directly responsible for a lot of autoimmune. I mean, we've got the data right here. So let's talk about our lovely BT Roundup and how it works. BT, which is Roundup Ready, is produced inside every cell, and it can't be washed off or degraded. And because of the way they do this process, its concentrations can be 3,000 to 5,000 times more than the spray. So when they put it into the actual seed, as opposed to spraying it, okay, it's 3,000 to 5,000 times more intense. The BT pesticide molecule has a safety catch on it, and it keeps it inactive until it gets inside the alkaline stomach of the insect. Then the safety catch is removed, and the BT destroys the stomach lining of the pest and kills it. It splits the stomach open. That's how it works. And we are eating this stuff. When scientists prepare the BT gene for plants, they change it so that the molecule no longer has safety catch. It's immediately active, and this form is likely to be more toxic to humans. The amino structure of the Bt toxin has a section that's identical to a known allergen. It fails the allergy test recommended by the World Health Organization. Bt, glyphosate Roundup exposure has been linked to sterility, hormone disruption, abnormal and lower sperm counts, miscarriages, damaged human embryonic and placental cells, placental cell death, growth defects, and cancer. It's also toxic and lethal to amphibians. See what's happening with their farmers. And, you know, that's interesting. I did hear something a number of years ago with the statistics about people that work on farms, and cancer incidence is very, very high. And I would suspect it has so much to do with their exposure to these terrible toxins. So what does this do to nutrition? Roundup binds with nutrients. It deprives the plants of the minerals needed to help them defend against disease. Bt reduces the nutritional value in food, and it accumulates in the food of Roundup-ready plant in the residue, and it increases these thresholds by up to 200%. So we're getting less nutritious. So this whole argument that we have to have GMOs, we cannot feed the planet without GMOs, is completely false. So the consequences are eating these nutrient-depleted, toxic-laden foods increases your toxic burden on the liver, and it decreases available nutrients for detoxification. You have less energy for digestion because your liver is now working harder. So let's talk about that. The poor old liver, you know, here's the detoxification pathways, you know, going from phase 1 to phase 2, converting from fat soluble to water soluble. And you can see that, you know, everything goes through the liver. Our hormones, you know, to formulate neurotransmitters, you know, all our fats go through there. Any medications, over-the-counter prescription go through there. Any environmental toxins go through there. Plus, this thing is also an important digestive organ. So if it is so overwhelmed trying to just deal with the toxic load, how can it do its job as a digestive organ? It really doesn't have that much energy. It's too much to expect for this poor organ. So the liver, as I said, is both a filtering organ and digestive organ. And because it's overburdened trying to move the toxins, it doesn't have the energy to assist in the digestive process. And it's always working, it's always, you know, removing the chemicals, like I just said, you know, all the hormones, sometimes people don't think about that, over-the-counter stuff. So anything we can do to decrease the toxic load on the liver is huge. You know, I just want to stop and say, you know, everybody's this time of year wanting to do detoxes. That's a big thing, you know, I'm going to do a juice detox, you know, I'm going to do, you know, a raw foods detox, I'm going to, you know, blah, 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 blah. The problem with most of these programs is they do not properly prepare people to detox. If you just start upregulating the whole system with, you know, giving them all these, you know, nutraceutical formulated foods, which, you know, I do use some of those, but I don't start people out on that for a while. I make them go through cleaning up what they're eating and what they're exposing themselves to first for a while, because it doesn't make any sense to me to do it otherwise, you know? If they're just going to still be surrounded by the same crap, and then you give them all this stuff that's supposed to push stuff through, this can be a problem. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some new science as to why that's a very big deal for probably as much as 50% of the population. But I'm going to teach you that. Not yet. So there are genetic variations in the ability of the liver to detoxify. And one of these is a polymorphism called MHNA, methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. And this does a lot of things. It has a lot of impacts, and this is a way complicated subject that I'm not going to go into too much tonight. I've provided you with a great URL to go to. Dr. Ben Lynch is the guy on this. But one of the things it does is it makes it harder for people to detoxify. They re-intoxify because they cannot make the conversions in the methylation processes. Now, the B vitamins are unique in that they have to go through a lot of conversion process, and that's really predominantly what we're talking about here. And I have an illustration I'm going to show you after this. And as I said, they think as many as 50% of the population has these gene mutations. And you can have a couple different alleles, I think there's even 3, And depending on what combinations you have and other factors, there's different things you can do to assist that. And actually, I have one of them. So this is, that gives you an idea. I am not a chemistry. This is, and I'll tell you what, you can show this to most doctors. They're going to go, woo, their eyes are going to glaze over. This is some really hairy stuff. And Dr. Ben Lynch, God love him. I mean, this guy can talk about this stuff until I am just going, enough, stop. I can't listen anymore. My head is spinning. He gets it. He understands it. He is the go-to guy. He's just poured all his energies into this. So he is the guy to read about. It's very fascinating stuff. It's very heady stuff. So let's talk about gut health. Oh, boy. 80% of the immunity resides in the gut. Do we all know that? Yay, that's great. I'm so glad we do. Because some people don't know that. But this group is so, well-read, you would know that. People with autoimmune conditions are very likely to have intestinal permeability or leaky gut. So you cannot address this problem without addressing the gut. You fix the gut, and you not only increase your body's ability to fight off pathogens, but you improve digestion, and we want to do that. So food intolerances definitely contribute to leaky gut. The IgG/IgAs from hidden food intolerances are very common in people with autoimmune disorders, and they usually don't know this. Gluten is a biggie. People are hearing more about that, but there's others as well. Corn, soy, and dairy are also very high. Even things like eggs we're finding are really popping up a lot more. And then there's all the very, individualized ones that might, be unique to that individual. Interestingly, gluten, corn, soy, and dairy are some of the most highly genetically modified organisms we have. So here we go again. We should have another light bulb. So here is, and there's different lists here. This is sort of a compilation of a few. Most commonly GMO foods. And remember, commercially raised animals and products made by those animals, dairy products and so forth, are fed these pro-inflammatory and GMO predominantly foods. So we want to, buy pasture-raised and wild-caught as much as possible and avoid the commercially raised, and we will be reducing our load. You can see corn, just about all of it. It's just terrible. I was asking an organic farmer, I was getting, a box in the summer from a CSA, and there was some corn in it, and I said, wow, this is great, non-GMO covered. And I said, where do you get your seed? How do you do this? And she said, well, it's non-GMO when we put it in the ground, but because of cross-contamination, it probably doesn't last very long. And that's just so sad. It's just so sad, Soy, again, there's other problems with soy too as well. This is a really common allergen a lot of people don't realize, and soy is in zillions of products. It's also contains phytic acid. It's disruptive to our ability to be able to metabolize and absorb our minerals. So soy is really a good one to take off the list. Alfalfa, canola oil, it's not a good quality oil. Don't be fooled. It really isn't. Sugar beets, unless you are getting cane sugar or organic sugar beets, you're getting GMO. I mean, 96%. It's huge. One of the first crops. And now, yellow and crookneck zucchini squash. I could not find a number on this. And this is relatively new. They keep approving it. They keep approving more and more products. The biotech industry just is, they have an office in Washington, in the, I don't know. They're just getting anything they want. And then don't forget about the growth hormone. You don't want that in the milk either. So here's a map with another visual for you that shows the major crops. And I think this one was, I think this might be fairly recent too. This might be within the last year that this one was done. I think this was CNBC. Yeah, all the papayas. Isn't that tragic? Yeah, I actually saw, there's a group, I don't know, it was on a PBS thing, it was really fascinating. There is a group that are, I guess there's people that are into like the wild tropical fruits, and they go traveling all over and they have like clubs, and it's like this, it's this big kind of hobby for them. But they've also started to save native species and, grow them so that they don't become contaminated. And there's a whole group in Florida that's doing this, and they're doing some valuable work because they're saving some papayas from being GMO'd. So people probably are very familiar with what's a gluten grain and what isn't, but just in case, here's a handy-dandy slide. Oats do contain a type of gluten. It's not the same type of gluten as wheat, so I do want to point that out. Oats are problematic for some people, and indeed, some people cannot tolerate any grains at all. So I'll talk a little bit more about that moving forward. So other inflammatory foods for leaky gut, we've sort of covered this a bit. Dairy products, try and stick with pasture-raised, raw, or naturally fermented. If the person is not casein intolerant, the unhealthy oils, we talked about those, soy, canola, corn, safflower, contain higher omega-6, and the ones with asterisks are very GMO'd. And sugar feeds many diseases, leads to insulin resistance, we know that. Strictly limit, even from natural sources such as brown sugar, raw honey, maple syrup, brown rice syrup, use stevia instead as much as possible. The nightshades are problematic for some people, although there has never been any real solid evidence scientifically, but that doesn't necessarily personally mean anything to me. I think that you can react to anything. I don't need a study to tell me everybody thing. Okay. Some people find this helps a lot to remove the nightshades. Other people. So protein is problematic, and now that we know what's happening with these proteins, with GMOs, with the alteration, this is another interesting facet of it. I'm trying to help you, play detective. This is what I do. I play detective. What are all these pieces telling me? As we age, the peripheral cells in the stomach lining produce less hydrochloric acid, and 50% of people over age 60 have low stomach acid. Hypochlorhydria, which is low stomach acid, is actually much more common than hyperchlorhydria, even though they give PPIs for both of them. But both PPIs and NSAIDs are associated with an increased risk of community-acquired C. difficile, which you probably know. The use of acid-suppressing therapy, particularly the PPIs, alters the pH and blocks pepsin production. And we need pepsin production for protein. We don't have it, we can't break it down.
Could you list off what some proton pump inhibitors are for the lay people?
No, because I don't deal with drugs. So I don't work with drugs.
Well, just so they know they're drugs, because there's some lay people in the room.
Protonics.
What are they?
I know what they are. Yeah. Nexium.
Protonics. Nexium. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't deal with drugs, so I don't really know that much about them. I only know when I go to Drugs RX and I check for contraindications with anything that I'm doing. So that's not my expertise. Stomach acid is also necessary for proper mineral absorption and provides protection against food poisoning. Wow, this is an important piece. And proper hydrochloric acid is necessary for absorption of the B vitamins. Remember we talked about issues with methylation? Here's another problem. Low B12 is very common among autoimmune patients. Pancreatic enzyme deficiencies are also really common. And this is directly related to low stomach acid and poor protein breakdown. Really great book. I think it's on its 4th printing. It's called Autoimmune, the Cause and the Cure. And I actually had discussions with the authors, and they have a website. This will be in your handout as well. And another super duper great one that is required reading in all holistic nutrition education, as far as I know, is by Elizabeth Lipsky, Digestive Wellness, and I think that's on its 5th or 6th grade. Awesome. So when protein can be broken down in the stomach, this results in undigested protein particles moving through the digestive tract. This leads to dysbiosis, which is putrefaction of undigested food in the gut. This damages the gut wall and causes a leaky gut situation, and it promotes pathogenic bacteria like yeast overgrowth that feed off undigested food particles. All this triggers the secondary immune response with the IgG, IgA antibody, and inflammatory cytokines. So here's a little diagram showing a healthy intestinal tract and a damaged intestinal lining. And what happens here with the inflammation, you can see the undigested food particles, it starts to degrade the walls of the intestinal lining. Those large particles that are not supposed to flow, that naturally are supposed to be inside the stomach, now go out, and the body goes, woo, alarm, alarm, reaction, reaction. And so now we have this IgG and sometimes IgA response. And anybody that has any kind of chronic fatigue issue, anybody that has elevated Epstein bars, you gotta fix the gut. They will never feel good until you address the gut. So this is multifaceted in the approach that needs to be taken with these people. All this triggers a secondary immune response to foreign invaders by creating antibodies. And the new evidence is pointing to these reactions happening as triggers in autoimmune disease. So we're finally getting some real hard science on this. The IgG antibodies are the principal mediators of autoimmune disease, such as immune thrombocytopenia. Thank you. And the rest of it you can read. Lupus, RA, type 2 diabetes, and I've indicated a reference for that. So this continues in the cascade of problems that happen because low stomach acid, then we have potential dysbiosis, inadequate digestive enzymes is a piece of this. The poor diets that people are eating, generally the SAD diet, and the immunosuppressing drugs and antibiotics, all really disrupt the flora in the gut and destroy the friendly bacteria. So now it's just a really great environment for all this nasty stuff to grow. Okay, so the person's just really all unbalanced and can't digest the protein. It's a vicious cycle because they rob the body of all the nutrients because they're taking it all. Remember, this is a pathogenic. Yeast will suck up all the nutrients as will any other pathogen, and the person feels worse and worse. So here's another diagram for you that talks about the factors affecting the mucosal immune system, resulting in intestinal dysfunction, autoimmunity, and nervous system abnormalities. And you can see dietary proteins, autoantibodies, drugs, antibiotics, stress, infections, cytokines, neurotransmitters, and enzymes. Oftentimes these people, of course, I'd be depressed too, but not that lousy. But another reason why they feel lousy is because they're not even able to make enough neurotransmitters. So many times there was other condition, very severe depression, anxiety, panic attacks, all that kind of stuff is happening. And of course, the person, is having so much trouble making neurotransmitters because of this, it's not helping them anymore. It's also adding to the flames. So steps to recovery. Uncover food intolerances that may be hidden. Check for things like yeast overgrowth, highly probable and autoimmune. Check for small bowel bacterial overgrowth. H. pylori parasites are another issue, much more common than people realize, and very highly probable and autoimmune. Tests can be done through specialized labs. Most medical doctors don't know about these tests, and these aspects are frequently overlooked, unfortunately. And I've been told by a couple functional medicine doctors that, labs, and this is them saying it, not me, but I just want to impart this, that labs like Beaumont, Crittenton really are not set up to adequately test for these types of things. You really need a specialty lab. I have heard from one doctor who claims that the one over there by Brown, off of Brown Road, the lab up there, that they do an okay job.
Not Quest.
Quest. She says that Quest. She says it. I don't know.
I've heard Quest from where I was before.
Quest, thank you. I was hoping you'd jump in there. The Quest is good, but I can't speak to that, because that's
a national lab. They're all over the place.
You can do, I do kits with people. They're very easy to do, and now more people are actually being able to find those and do those. It's the interpretation is where, then people are like, okay, I got this, what does it mean? That's where you need to work with somebody who knows how to read the results. That's always helpful. But there are tests out there, and again, in Digestive Wellness, she talks extensively about that with Lipsky, as do Autoimmune, the Cause and the Cure, and many, many other books. And if you go to Holistic Nutrition School, this is a very important piece that you are taught. You get a lot of training in this. So we talked about 80% of the immunity resides in the gut. Address a leaky gut, repair the damage, eliminate the pathogens, and rebalance microflora. By healing the gut, you begin to improve digestion. And a healthy body requires a strong natural immunity, and this begins in the gut. So when we do improve the gut integrity, we are now improving digestion, we're breaking the food down properly, we are now able to increase absorption of nutrients, because all the pills in the world are not going to do you any good if you can't absorb them, right? They're not going where they're supposed to go. Repairing leaky gut reduces the immune response, it decreases inflammation, and this increased absorption of the nutrients means that you have a better chance of functioning optimally, because we're not just talking about raw diagnostic ranges, we're really talking here about optimal ranges, which are much more narrow, right? That's really what we want. We want to make people, help them feel really good, not just kind of so-so. Okay, that's another distinction in what we're doing. Improve energy, decrease pain. Boy, quality of life goes up, and that's what we want. Ta-da! Section 3, food is medicine. Here we go. Okay, specific diets. There are a lot of special diets out there that have improved various people, but people are very individualized with this. So we have some people that go gluten-free. We have some people that go grain-free. We have the ketogenic diets. We have gas and elemental diets. And there's many other variations of all of those. What combination, ultimately, of foods to avoid and include depends on the individual's autoimmune conditions and their current state of health, disease progression. So this really needs to be an individualized way of working with people. There's a lot of books out there, and people try things and they don't work. Sometimes you have to come up with your own hybrid with some of these things. So, that's one of the things that I do with people, that I like to do with people, because I frankly had to find this out by going back to school. I didn't get to tell you my story, actually. I'll take just a quick second here. When I was in my 40s, I had a whole other career before this. I was a corporate executive and traveled around talking to Fortune 500 companies as a consultant. And I loved my job, I was doing a lot of traveling, and I started to feel very run down. I was getting migraine headaches more frequently, and I was taking more and more of my prescription medication. My knees started bothering me a lot. I started thinking, God, I'm only in my mid-40s, I'm falling apart. Like, that always hurt. I found out it was my adrenals. I got tested for, I got my annual exam, and they found some precancerous cells. So I had to keep going back and get tested on that. I really thought I was going to be in a wheelchair by the time I was 50. So I started to go to a lot of complementary alternative medicine, which was what it was called then. It wasn't called really integrative. And each of them gave me a little piece, but nobody was really pulling it all together. And I was getting really frustrated. So I decided, that I really wasn't feeling so passionate about what I was doing anyways. I needed to follow my passion, because I'd always been interested in nutrition and health and herbs, and I just, self-educating, I have all kinds of books and stuff. I thought I need to go get some formal education on this. I really try and put the pieces together for myself, and boy, I had so many aha moments. I found out I had chronic fatigue, actually. I was really bad. And it was my adrenals, like I said, it wasn't my back. I got off gluten, and my migraine headache stopped. My pain stopped. I had rosacea too. They just want to keep giving me another medication. That went away. I don't have that problem anymore. And I thought, wow, I kept having these aha moments. Man, if I can do this to myself and help myself like this, just think what I can do with other people. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I can't stand seeing all these people suffer, and I can't stand all these people that are just beating their head against the wall, so frustrated because I just keep giving them medications that then cause more side effects, and they really are not addressing the cause. So that is what I've made my mission now, to do with people, the best of my ability. I have to say that, I am now very close to 60, and I didn't think I would be standing up. I thought I'd be in a wheelchair by the time I was 50. So I feel pretty pleased, that what I'm doing is working. So specific diets. So what we're going to talk about now are kind of general areas of focus, but you should consider these in any program. And again, specifics are going to vary from person to person. Strengthen natural immunity with healing foods. Things like leafy greens, mustard greens, Swiss chard, kale, spinach, they're all loaded with potassium, vitamin C, vitamin K, iron, calcium, magnesium. So they're really good in minerals and vitamins. And most people aren't including much of any of these. You might see people eat a little spinach, but that's about it. I think kale, some people are getting a little more interested in that, Swiss chard. So those are really, pretty much good for anybody in any situation. They're great, high in phytochemicals, and, these are things that help with free radicals, which is what we also want to do. We want to quiet that. Greens contain, carotenoids, flavonoids, and other powerful antioxidants. So they're very anti-cancer as well. Some of the good healing foods are the cruciferous vegetables, and these are really good for damping down any kind of tumor type situations. If you have, autoimmune Hashimoto's or any kind of thyroid issues, you need to be careful with these. Only eat them cooked and don't eat too many of them. But they are really good foods. Yes?
Do you want questions to be saved for the end?
Well, no, that kind of answered it. So I know a lot of people who are doing a lot of the green smoothie things, and, every day they're throwing like kale or some of these things. And I guess my question is, what do you think on that? Like, it's not a cooked kale, and it's a daily thing. How do you know about that with the whole thyroid thing?
Yeah, with the whole thyroid thing, that can be problematic, and it generally will be for people. So vary it up. I mean, a forgotten vegetable, greens that's great, is parsley. Parsley is awesome. Parsley is so great to throw in there. I'd love to see people doing a little more of that. Spirulina's good. That's not going to do that to you. There are other options out there. So you do have to be careful with that. So antioxidant-rich foods, things like berries are really good. Apples, pears, peaches, these are all, fresh. If you can't, get the berries are so expensive right now. I do frozen in my smoothies and protein shakes. Cranberries and brightly colored vegetables are all very high in antioxidants. And you can see what some of those are there, and they're very good for the gut, too. At least 2 servings a day, and if you stick to the low GI foods, you're better off, and you don't have the concern with the insulin spiking and then crashing. And that's another reason why the green smoothies are better. Some people are still doing smoothies with all fruits or juicing of all fruits, and this can really wreak a lot of havoc with your blood sugar levels. You don't want to do that. You want to stick to vegetables. And there's a simple rule of thumb, and that is that you should do all vegetables, with the exception of apple can go in there for something sweet. If you do all fruits, which I do not recommend, carrot is the one that could go in there, but I really don't recommend all fruit. It's just too problematic. I think 10 or 20 years ago, people didn't really realize that, but now we do. So this just gives you a little snapshot of some of the caloric value of some of these foods and why they may be called superfoods, indeed. Some pretty spectacular stuff here. And yeah, you see things even like turmeric on there, green tea, parsley there. Good. And beetroots are good too. The beet greens. People throw those away, but those beet greens are really, really lovely to chop up real fine, put them in a salad. You can stir fry them. You can add them to really anything. You add a little brown rice or whatever, quinoa or something very nice. Actually, I have a good recipe for beet greens cookbook. Raw juicing, just touching on that. It's great because it has a lot of enzymes. It's used in 20 minutes. It's very easily assimilated. Best taken on an empty stomach, and best to stick to the green vegetables due to the GI content. Naturally fermented foods do provide powerful digestive enzymes. They help with detoxification, particularly the active chelators really for heavy metals, pesticides, and other toxins. And they really help our digestion and allow for proper absorption of vitamins and minerals in foods. So traditionally prepared, okay, that means, lacto-fermented or fermented with, Celtic sea salt or Himalayan salt. And you can do this with any vegetable, and I have put some resources in your handout for that. It is an acquired taste, I will tell you that. I am really not crazy about sour tasting things, so I have made myself a little jar of a vegetable ferment, and I just take, like 2 tablespoons of it, or maybe a quarter cup a day. I take it like it's another, supplement for me, because I really am not crazy about it. People that eat the stuff and love it, they love it. They eat it by the tons. It's just not something that's my thing. I'm really trying with it because I know it's really good. And in every culture they have these. A really terrific book on it, and maybe you guys are nodding, and maybe you know about Sandor Katz's wild fermentation. Fabulous book, and that's also in your resources. Sandor, God, he's been doing it probably 20 years. He had AIDS and put himself in complete remission from doing naturally fermented foods, and he travels all over the world now. He's actually written a second book, and it's really a fascinating read. The first one, I haven't read the second one, but he's just got all kinds of great stories of historical uses and cultures that, the various ferments that they created. And he's even got breads in there. I think he's even got beer in there. He's got all kinds of stuff in there. It's a really interesting read. So bone broths, anybody familiar with bone broths? Oh, good. Bone broths are great, and you want to make sure that you're using a pasture-raised animal for these. We know now why they work so well, and this is from Sally Fallon and Leslie Price. They actually have a lot of proline and glycine in them, and they're really restorative to help repair the gut. So fabulous. Anybody who is recovering from surgery or who is in poor health can benefit from the bone broths, and they're just so easy to make. There's really, really nothing to them. I have given you recipes also for these in your handout. Proline is needed for production of collagen, cartilage, keeps your muscles and joints flexible, helps reduce sagging and wrinkling from UV exposure, and along with
website.
Proline provides
I wasn't sure she already gave the address because I wasn't listening.
Glycine is required for detoxification. It helps improve phase 2 of the process. It aids digestion also by enhancing gastric acid secretion. Really important. It plays a vital role in wound healing and repair intestinal walls. So it's just really like a magic broth that anybody can make. I wish that, after surgery, my dream is someday, after surgery in the hospital, that everybody will look at me. That's my dream.
Instead they have those little sprinkles in it. Good, you think, now that they have for like bone broth.
So bone marrow in bone broth help keeps the immune system strong by carrying oxygen to the cells in the body, and minerals like calcium and phosphorus are essential for maintaining healthy bones and generating energy. Using cartilage-rich bones such as knuckles and chicken feet, when you're not going to find chicken feet, is said to be effective in treating arthritis and other degenerative joint diseases. And I pretty much put everybody who comes to me with an autoimmune issue on the bone broth. And anybody who's in very poor health from cancer or anything else, it's really great for. And sometimes, the other point of it is that you can just sip the broth and it's very comforting. Sometimes when you're sick, that's just like the only thing that feels comforting to eat. When people are very ill and they don't really want to eat, you hate to force them to eat. If you can get them to take a little bone broth, usually they'll take it, and you're giving them something really good. So grass-fed animals, we talked about this a little bit. They're superior to commercially raised livestock because they grow on omega-3 food sources and not corn and soy, which is what they're being fed if they're commercially raised. And again, GMO. They're also higher in vitamin E, lutein, xanthan, and beta-carotene, which I think a lot of people don't realize. Wild-caught seafood, fish and seafood are really great choices, and some people find that removing meat products and just having more protein sources from fish and seafood and nuts and seeds helps them. Especially with the seafood, they find it's just a little easier on the digestive system. Some people not. You can make bone broths from these too. You can make fish stock from the heads and the tails and the bones. still puts up, you're getting all those great minerals from the ocean. Farm-raised fish contain higher amounts of pro-inflammatory omega-6s than wild fish. Wild salmon are higher in protein content and 20% lower fat content than farm-raised, believe it or not. Use the right salt. Get them to get rid of the table salt. It's just all sodium chloride. It's really poison. Switch to Celtic sea salt, Himalayan pink salt. A lot of people are still being told wrong information by their cardiologists that they should not have any salt. And as a result, they're having a lot of problems because we do need salt. And we need the whole spectrum of minerals, and salt is one of those. And when we are taking the more natural salts, we're getting a little bit of those other minerals too. Sea vegetables are also very good, very high in minerals, also known as seaweed. Remember to include your omega-3 fatty acids. Some of the sources are listed here, familiar to you: low-cut fish, avocados, nuts and seeds. If you can soak or sprout, they're more digestible. Not everybody does that, and you can find charts online. And actually, I've posted on my Facebook page, and you really can't find them. Email me, and I'll send it to you. Extra virgin coconut oil, olive oil, very good. Flax seeds and oil. Hemp oil is something now. I don't know if I put it on here, but I put the seeds. But hemp oil, I'm actually reading a lot of really good things about now too. So that's another one that would be good. Evening primrose oil, it's very good. A lot of people we find that have joint issues seem to respond better to those sometimes than formulations that have more DHA. So again, there's some specificity here needed in terms of ratios of DHA to EDFAs that also should be taken into consideration. Essential fatty acids, the reason that they're essential is we can't make them in our body, so we must get them from foods. They're an important source for energy, and they're a structural component of all cell membranes, and we cannot have proper cell signaling. The cells cannot talk to each other if we don't have the right essential fatty acids. It's a lock and key analogy. You have to have the right key for the lock, or it does no good. Problem with people when they are buying a lot of processed foods, or they're buying cooked foods, carry and go, or dining out a lot, is they're getting all the wrong kind of fats. They are not getting a key to fix the lock. They are not getting essential fatty acids. So when you explain it that way to people, they usually get it. And if they're having issues with hormones, which most people are, because we have all these endocrine disruptors going on too, if they're having issues with neurotransmitters and they have neurological and emotional issues, I bet you if you look at their diet, they have essential fatty acid deficiency. Very common, and this is not checked for. And there's actually some very expensive testing to be done to check for this as well. Got to consume the correct, healthy essential fatty acids, or the cells can't talk to each other. They cannot communicate. So this is a little explanation about rheumatoid arthritis, which we talked about, talking about how eicosanoids are chemical messengers, and a trial that was done that showed the more plant-based supplementation really did decrease the pain intensity and duration of the morning stiffness in rheumatoid arthritis patients. But again, people are not taking enough quantities of this too. Another thing that we're doing here in holistic health is instead of using prescription drugs, we're using food, we're using nutrients, we're using herbs, and yes, food is always first. That is the core. That is the foundation of everything. However, when somebody, comes in, and I do test people for micronutrient deficiencies, and they show that they're really depleted, I can't get them to eat enough food to get them up to where they need to be optimally. So that's when supplementation can be a big help. So instead of giving drugs that suppress, we give food and nutrients that address and replete. So use enough of the essential fatty acids. New research is showing that we need from 4 to 6 grams, almost all of us. Not 2 grams, but 4 to 6 grams. Some people even need more than that. And it should be spaced out during the day, not all at once. So maybe you're taking 2 or 3 times a day, which is what I always do with those. And as I said, studies are now showing it is important to get both EPA from plants as well as from the fish. So it's the balance that makes the difference in terms of, are we addressing a neurological issue, an emotional issue? Are we addressing cardiovascular issue? Are we addressing inflammation? You know, how are we weighting this? That's where the ratios come into play. So some general supportive nutrients, we talked about, oh, thank you, sister. We talked about some of these. I've given you some general guidelines here. This is also in the handout, this frame, okay?
Are we getting the handout, or is it going to the website?
You're going to get the handout by clicking on a link that I created for you to go and get it. It's 10 pages, and honestly, I think people like getting things electronically because you can click on the links. You know, personally, if I get paper, where do I put it? I have everything on my computer. So I'll show you that at the end with the link on how to do that. You probably want to write that down. So CoQ10 is a good one. Vitamin C actually is very good. Melatonin, it does have a lot of immune support and anti-inflammatory properties. B12, and the deficiency of B12 is very common. And if you are under 450 PGML, you really should be getting injections. And I know most of you have not been taught that. You've been taught at a much lower rate. I have a very wonderful book that, if I could say, like a couple books to get. This one I highly recommend. It's also in your handout. It's called Could It Be B12? And it's written by Sally Palchuk. She has been an emergency nurse, I think from McLaren, actually, for many years. And she and her husband, who's a DO, wrote this book. I saw her at National Association of Nutrition Professionals conference speak about it, and it was mind-boggling. She went through an awful lot personally, and then went on a mission to force the issue in the ER to get people who presented in all these different ways that they were thinking was, you know, a stroke, or, you know, it was Parkinson's, or it was dementia, or, you know, it was someone having a heart attack, all these, and it was actually low B12. And it's because the thresholds are too low for B12. And she's got documented case studies in that are just unbelievable. It's a fabulous book.
Who's the
She has
author?
an accompanying website, and that's also in the handout too.
Oh,
You'll read more about that. Folic acid, folic acid, synthetic folic acid is actually really, really bad. It's super bad for anybody that has that methylation issue I said. What you want is you want the converted form. You want the L-methylfolate. And unfortunately, anything that you're buying over the counter that people are, you know, generally taking does not have that. It has folic acid, and that's just messing with them big time. You do not want them taking that. They want L-methylfolate. And that is only available in more clinical settings. Your functional medicine doctors are all using this now, all of them that I know. And again, you can read more about that. Dr. Ben Lynch is the guru on that. Vitamin D, I think everybody's understanding that that's important. Probiotics and enzymes, didn't really talk about supplementing with that, but I think that's essential. I always do that. And I use, you know, a company that I feel very trusting of, and that I will not give up my probiotics. I've had a lot of people come in and say, oh, I'm taking this, you know, whatever, from, you know, health food store or whatnot, and I get them switched over to what I've been using, and I can't believe the difference. It really makes a huge difference. I'm not giving them up. Enzymes do help. Again, the pancreatic ones are especially important. And in autoimmune cause and cure, they talk a lot about that being another common denominator with people, that they just need pancreatic enzymes, so that's something to consider as well. Iodine complex helps the thyroid work better. If you're all familiar with Dr. Brownstein, he's written books on that, on salt and so forth. He's a real go-to person on that. Selenium is very good for the thyroid too. Sometimes in the iodine complex you can get the selenium in there. That's always nice. MSM is it's actually really good for bowel issues, believe it or not, too. It does support the detoxification pathways. N-acetylcysteine is a precursor to the glutathione, which is the body's most powerful detoxifying agent. So in giving that, we're helping the body to manufacture more of something that it needs. Asparagus is the most high naturally glutathione containing vegetable.
L-carnosine, and I mean, these things actually do way more than I'm saying. I'm just giving you sort of a, a primer. Protect against free radical damage does a whole lot more than that, too. Somebody who's written a lot about that is Dr. Stephen Sinatra. It's very good for heart health.
Particularly if you're, getting the best form, which is a wild crafted, or secondarily would be like an organic, not a standardized.
It's really necessary to do a lot more investigation, but these are some of the common ones that are used to strengthen immunity. And there is some contraindications that in certain conditions where you wouldn't use some of these. So, as you know, that's been studying herbs and egg root, that, the herbs are absolutely phenomenal. And they go really deep. And you can use one herb for so many things, particularly if you're, getting the best form, which is a wild crafted, or secondarily would be like an organic, not a standardized. Standardized has lost all the other constituent properties that really make it work synergistically, in my opinion, and usually in the opinion of most true master herbalists. And it's a fascinating study, and I continue to just learn more and more about it, and use these more in my practice.
Not give up their skunk cabbage towel, because that's what helps them get through not just the night but the day. White willow bark is what aspirin is made from. Quercetin, great for the gut, great natural anti-inflammatory, natural antihistamine. It's used in a lot of formulations for people that have seasonal allergies. So those are just, a few little tidbits there. So other issues are lack of protein digesting enzymes. It's pretty much present in all autoimmune disorders. Methylation, we talked about that, how the body converts B vitamins, is also found to be present in just about all autoimmune diseases. So some testing options here. The MTHFR test, it's a serum blood draw, and it tests for methylation pathway problems. SpectraCell is really the only one I know that does it. They've been doing it for a long time. I don't know if it's covered totally by insurance, especially with all the changes. I can't really speak to that. I want to say it's about $370 out of pocket. The DNA SMP, the SNPs, this is actually through a company that now the FDA cracked down on, because 23andMe, you may have heard about it. It's actually started by a woman that is married to the chairman, founder, CEO guy of Google. And it's a very fascinating battery panel of information. My personal problem with it was that what they wanted to do with it, how they wanted to use it, and being connected to Google kind of just left me a little uncomfortable. I don't know. I think they're still out there. What they can't give you is they were giving you a great website once you got the report to actually go through with an analysis of what everything meant. And I think that was the piece, usually that's what the FDA cracks down on, You can't say how anything works. It's like, just put it out there and people are supposed to figure it out. It's like, yeah, but there's this thing called Materia Medica, which has actually been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, which is a public domain document. You can Google it, you can download it, you can look at it, and it tells you all about herbs. It's very, very long. It was started, I believe, over in England or Europe or something. Can't get back because our grandfather didn't know what it was. Food intolerance and candida. We talked a little bit about this. A few different ways to go about it. Serum and blood spot are more common. That some people do stool testing. I do blood spot because I can't do serum. And it measures IgG. There is IgA ones. I don't use the IgA one. That's ALCAT, pretty much. And I can't remember the other one. There's another one too. I can't remember. Anyways, it reflects the degree of reactivity to specific foods and candida. And I always like to measure and test and see if we have food intolerance and candida. It's pretty much you always have both. There's always, and then it could be small bowel bacteria, overgrowth, there could be, parasites and other things in there. So this is helpful in identifying problem foods and yeast, and if it's confirmed, you definitely have leaky gut, because that's how you get it, because your gut's leaky. So, you can also do the old-fashioned way, which is the elimination rotation diet. It's more laborious. It's actually very effective and accurate. Most people, you know, most people need a lot of help to walk through that. But I do that with people too. Heavy metals, the best way, from what I've been told, is testing through hair and urine. Some people like urine better, and there is, you know, a DMSO chelating agent that's given in those instances. A lot of the functional medicine doctors do it that way. But the hair testing, a lot of people swear by that, and I think it's, you know, I know Nikki loves the hair testing for that too. Toxic elements, there's a panel actually called toxic elements, and it's from Metametrics. Metametrics. Metametrics is what Metametrics. And it, you know, basically measures what you're excreting to determine what your toxic elements are. It's a pretty big test in terms of what information it gives you. Organic acids test. So it's useful in identifying blocked metabolic pathways. Helps identify problems in energy production, detoxification, biotransformation, neurotransmitter breakdown, or intestinal microbial activity. And it also helps to determine what causes a deficiency, like an enzyme deficiency or a nutrient deficiency or toxic interference or drug induced. Micronutrient testing, I really like this test a lot. And the only one that I know really does this way is through SpectraCell. And I've been using this a lot more. I had it done myself. It's really a great piece of information. It does require a blood draw, but you know, draw sites are all over the place. So, I mean, you guys can do that, but I can't, so I have to send them to a blood draw place. But what it does is it actually uses lymphocytes, and they actually pull those out, they put the blood into like a centrifuge, and they divide it up. And then they, you know, regrow things in a culture, and they measure it. They have some sort of, I mean, that's like really a lame explanation, but that's basically what they're doing, because like I said, I'm not a chemist. And it tells us the cell's ability to resist damage caused by free radicals. So we also have this other factor that they measure, oxidative stress, which is very good. It will reflect the nutrient status over a 4 to 8 month period. So unlike a serum blood draw, which basically gives you a 12-hour window, it tells you, and that's actually not a very good way to measure micronutrients at all, by the way. It's really a very poor way. Part of why we have people that have nutrient deficiencies but don't know it, because, you know, doctors, first of all, don't test for very many nutrients, vitamin D, and you might get vitamin B, and, you know, a couple other things, and that's it. Maybe magnesium, if you can, you know, just not harm. This is a much better, accurate way of testing, and I like that it gives a 4 or 8 month period picture, just like an A1C. I think that's much more valuable. And actually, I don't know why they just don't do A1Cs on everybody, because I think it's much more valuable to know what your history's been for the last few months. You can really get, you know, when we're talking about prevention, wouldn't it make more sense to be able to see that, you know, you were trending towards insulin resistance before they go, okay, now you need to be on metformin. So our steps to address the cause. Let's look at what can we influence, limit, or change to reduce the suffering. So looking at the foods, what are the trigger foods? Remove them. What are the environmental toxins? Remove them and reduce the toxic load on the liver. And support the liver with more healing foods, herbs, and nutrients. Strengthen the natural immunity and improve absorption of nutrients by healing the gut and rebalancing the flora. Increase the healing foods, we have it twice. Use target healing nutrients to assist in recovery. So, you know, we can assist the person in feeling better faster. The more we can do that, the more likely they are to stay with the program. Assess and address any nutrient deficiencies and replete those through food and through nutrient supplementation, and add specific herbs known to help support, nourish, and ease pain, so that, you know, we can do some kind of palliative stuff there too. In conclusion, management of autoimmune conditions is multifaceted and complex. Increase the quality of life through a holistic approach that addresses the cause versus suppression of symptoms. Testing and assessment is important because each person's disease is unique and manifests in their body in different ways. Using food as medicine is an essential and integral part, actually, and it's really the foundation of any integrated recovery program. Remember, drugs suppress, but nutrients give the body back what it lacks.
We have a question from Katie, who's on the webinar.
Okay.
And she wants to know what the problem is with cruciferous veggies and Hashimoto's disease.
Well, it interferes with the thyroid's ability to function.
You might want to repeat the question.
Katie wants to know why cruciferous vegetables interfere with the thyroid.
Hashimoto, yeah.
Yeah, with Hashimoto's. They just cause a binding of nutrients, and so the body can't create enough thyroid hormone. They impact how the body is able to create natural thyroid hormone. Yes.
Is it for everybody is a problem or
No,
just?
it's only a problem really for people that have thyroid antibodies particularly, so like Hashimoto's. But anybody that takes thyroid medication should kind of, watch that. I was eating a lot more of that kind of thing, and I kind of backed off it and started eating some different things. If you cook them, they have less of potential to interfere. I mean, I wouldn't say don't ever eat them, but I would just limit your intake and try to cook them more.
Cooked is better or raw is
Cooking
better?
is better if you have a thyroid issue.
What about grapeseed oil?
Grapeseed oil?
Yeah, is it good for?
Udo Rasmuth is really the go-to guy on that. A lot of the issue with oils from his perspective, so I will just defer to him, is in the processing, and if it's, heat processed, if it's chemical processed. And so that's always, a question with these oils. I used to use grapeseed oil. I don't really use it anymore for high heat cooking. I use coconut oil, virgin coconut oil. I've switched to that. Again, Udo Rasmuth, he's another one of these really brilliant guys. He's got a website. It's in the reference guide. I don't use the grapeseed oil anymore. I switched to the coconut.
What about the sunflower oil? Because I used to, in my childhood, we used a lot.
Yeah, sunflower has more omega-6s in it. I used to use that too. I don't use that as much. We need omega-6s too. They just tend to be more inflammatory. So when we're talking about somebody that already has inflammation, we're really trying to balance out and give them less inflammatory foods, oils, everything. So for someone like that, I would tell them to stay away from the sunflower oil.
Would that include sunflower seeds and juicing sunflowers?
Yeah, I would say that too.
Sunflower butter.
Yeah, sunflower butter. One of the things that happens here, I'll just take a little aside here, and this can be a problem with anybody anywhere. When people go on these diets where they take a whole food category out, and then they're eating a lot of another food. For example, a lot of people are eating a lot more eggs for protein. I know a lot of people that have done this paleo diet, and there are so many eggs as substitutes for making the breads and things like that. I have now been seeing on, some of the people that I follow that doing this online that are authors of books and blogs and things, that they are now finding that they're reacting to eggs. So this is where the theory of the rotation diet has some merit, and I think maybe needs to be relooked at again. And the theory is that, once you find the foods that you react to, you pull them out, and you figure out when you reintroduce them, if they still bother you, then you try and stick with the program where you don't eat that same category of food, but, every 4 days. That's a very simplified explanation of it. And I think that probably has some merit. Yes.
I saw mention of iodine. Can you talk a little about why iodine is so important?
It nurtures and supports the thyroid. And the go-to guy on that is Brownsmead. Read his book, yeah. It's, and he is one of those that actually even says, and this is controversial, that people that have Hashimoto's should take thyroid too. Some doctors completely disagree with that. Some doctors agree with that.
Take iodine.
Take iodine.
Well, the sea salt is not the same as the
No.
Himalayan and the
No, it's not.
septaltic. So just any sea salt is not equivalent.
No.
Okay.
Sea salt is not the same as iodine.
No, I mean, just getting sea salt is not the same as getting Celtic sea salt or Himalayan pink.
No, you want Celtic sea salt. You want it should be like a gray or pink. It shouldn't be white. Yeah. Somebody else? Question? Yes.
I have a couple of statements and then one question. Regarding eggs, it's important to get to know the farmer, because if you're if the chickens are being fed a soy grain, that could affect the eggs, and that may be why some people are more sensitive.
Right, she's saying it's important to get to know the farmer. If the farmer is feeding the chickens eggs, or feeding the chickens soy, excuse me, that, is more inflammatory, it's probably, well, if it's organic, it's probably not GMO, no, I don't know the suspect of that. That could be problematic for the person that's eating the eggs, if they're really truly free range. But, they all supplement their diet with something, If they supplement it with, table scraps, it's the best, but I don't know how many really do that. Because the chickens do need some other food. That's what most chicken farmers are really about.
The other thing,
Or statement?
yeah, if anybody is interested, Peacock Poultry on Rochester and 19 Mile Road has chicken feet, if you're making your own bone broth.
Okay.
It's Rochester, just south of South Boulevard.
And last, what is A1C?
Oh, it's the blood test for, to find out what your blood sugar levels, if you're a diabetic or not. There's a normal range.
Just gives you a picture for 3 or 4 months of fasting blood glucose, which is only at 12 hours, basically.
You say A or A?
A1C. A1C.
What do you consider the good level of A1C?
I don't know.
Because there is all over the
I
map.
don't know that answer to that.
5 and 7 or something. I think so, I'll double check.
I heard
I'll leave that to the doctors.
under 6.2, under 6, under,
The doctor I will work for looks for under 6.
Okay.
Anything over 6, she starts looking for insulin resistance.
That makes more sense.
You
And we do all those blood tests that you were talking about that everybody should have when they start to get really sick. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
the stroke, where we're doing cardiac, we're doing the.
Yes, the system, the way the regular allopathic doctors work is, and the way they're trained, and that's why they work that way, is they're trained to diagnose and treat. And they wait till they have a diagnosis too late. I mean, they should be screening and saying, you are now getting too high here, you're too low here, that's preventative, right? And so we're not getting it. So, we need to do our part to try and change that.
They're saying 4 to 5.
Celtic or Himalayan, do you have a preference of those?
I have them both. I use the pink salt as kind of a finishing salt. It's great.
Are they both, do they both contain enough iodine or do you need to?
I don't think they contain much iodine at all, so I think you still need to supplement. No. The iodine, because it's a mineral, it's just like selenium. It depends on where it's sourced and what's in the ground. So, unless you actually had some sort of testing and measurement, you wouldn't really be able to know that. No. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I think help is fine for some people. I think some people need more of a specific dose. I mean, that's going to vary according to where, again, it was grown, how much the person is eating, and how frequently.
One of the people on the webinar, she says she's at a library and they're closing. She needs the URL so she can get the handout.
Here's the URL to download the handout. It's, HTTP, which you always put there. Yeah, Nourish Holistic Nutrition. Just make sure you have 2 H's. NOURISHHOLISTIC Nutrition. NUTRITION. All together. .info // MHN, which stands for Michigan Holistic Nurses Handout.